great partners here from California Solar and Storage Association, or as you know it as CALSSA, is my hero in advocacy, Carter Lavin, everybody.
Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate that. It's exciting to be here with K2 and with you and chatting with folks about lots going on here in California.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you real quick here, what are our next steps with NEM 3?
Okay, so NEM 3 and net metering, for those of you who are tuning in or people tuning in for the first time. So net metering is the foundational policy to economic success of solar projects in California. It is the take a penny, leave a penny of this market. It is the you make extra power, you send it to the grid, you get credit back on it. Net metering 3 is this proposal from the state government to radically change it. Now, the utilities and the electric companies in California have been pushing to gut net metering.
And that is not good.
Not good. No, the proposal, like, when we say not good, too, like, there was a proposal in December that came out that, if done, would, at a conservative, at a baseline, would shrink the market 50%. And, you know, and I'm looking at this conference, and I'm looking at all the booths and all the folks there. Imagine 50% of that gone. And much like what happened in Nevada, that wasn't a slow decline. That was overnight. And that was what's being proposed in California under NEM 3. Now, that was December of 2021. We as the Solar Association, along with a lot of our allies, environmental groups, a lot of folks here, came out and protest, made a lot of noise. And in January, the governor told the commission, think harder about this. Don't just go ahead, just think about this more, take more time. They've taken a lot of time. It is now September, and next week we are expecting, on the 29th, we are expecting the commission to come out with their final proposal.
The final proposal.
Yeah, it will get a vote in November, most likely. But, you know, I think the world has taught us that things are very uncertain, but November there's that vote with implementation in March. So right now at this conference and things, you know, people are talking about their Q1 plans or Q2 plans. Net metering is going to directly impact people's Q1 and Q2 plans. So
absolutely. Let me ask you this: how does that affect anybody who has solar already?
Sure. So the initial proposal back in December involved a retroactive cut, a thing that would hurt existing solar customers. When you run solar in California, you were guaranteed 20 years of protection, 20 years of the net metering agreement you were on. The proposal that came out, this radical anti-solar proposal, dropped that down to 15. And some people might say, okay, 20, 15 years, who cares? If you're a school in California and you have a PPA, you have a 20-year PPA,
yes.
5 of those years now, you're going to be underwater.
Erased. Yeah.
Or erased. Underwater, not just erased. The state of California, with the NEM 3 proposal, basically invented the concept of making people underwater on their solar investment. And so this is a big part of why we've been protesting it. This is a big part of why it's so important for folks to show up on October 11th at the Capitol for the big rally in Sacramento, because we need to get rid of those anti-existing customers, because there's 1.5 million Californians with solar today.
Absolutely. I'm one of them, Carter.
Yeah.
Actually, so not to just talk about myself, but my entire neighborhood that I live in was part of a pilot program with Power Light Solar to install solar tiles across the entire neighborhood. This was in 2007.
Okay.
So there's 28 homes in my particular block that have that. So that means that with the existing changes on net metering 3, everybody just in my neighborhood overnight
would be put into NEM 3. They're on NEM 1 right now. And NEM 3, you know, for residential right now, the NEM 3 proposal has fees, you know, has taxes for people to continue to stay interconnected. So a lot of people like you are going to be told, hey, do you want to have your solar continue to produce? You now have to pay a monthly solar tax to the utility.
For the benefit of whom?
Exactly. Well, and this is a big part of why we need to fight back, because frankly, I think a lot of people are going to say, look, I have a 15-year-old solar array. I don't want to pay $1,000 a year tax to keep it on. Uninstall that thing. And that's going to be a huge issue.
I know. So as we continue to dive a little bit deeper here with Carter on what net metering 3 and how it's going to affect people. So as you were saying, everybody at this convention right now is getting experienced on new technology or new module technology or new inverter technology. And they're all planning for the future of what's going to be healthy for their customers and for their business to be thriving
Yeah.
And with net metering 3 looming over here on the 29th, what can we do to actually get in touch with CALSSA and get involved with you?
Yeah, I mean, so there's two things. One, there's the political fight, because frankly, right now the utilities, rather than outcompeting the solar industry on a dollar per kilowatt basis, on a penny per kilowatt basis, they decided it was cheaper to do the politics fight. It's true. It's a lot easier to get politically engaged than it is to drop your prices by 50%. So the big thing is for folks to come to the rally on October 11th in the Capitol, calling the governor, letting them know, and telling your customers. Customers need to be talking out to the governor.
And when is that rally one more time?
October 11th, I believe.
October 11th.
And it's a big festival.
And where is it?
It's in Sacramento at the Capitol.
Okay.
But the other part is, like, look, I'm not, I'm as much as I am the bearer of, it's not even bad news. It's big news. Things can change. And yes, much like with Nevada, when that market went away with NEM, it didn't entirely go away. 90% of it did.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks they're going to be the 10%. Everyone thinks they're going to be the mouse that survives the meteor. And it is going to be small projects that are only west-facing, that are zero export. But California is a 150,000 project a year market.
Absolutely.
150,000 projects a year. And there's some states that, if we shrink to a 10,000 project market, it's still bigger than a lot of other states. But that's not going to work for us. And so it's more important. It's very important to win this fight. And we're going to have time when the chips are down, when it's all known, for us to all figure out what we need to do for our businesses, how much lower we need to get costs, because we're not going to make it through this unscathed. We are going to pull out a victory. It's not going to be this massive catastrophe because we are showing up at the rallies, we're pushing back, we're fighting hard. But next year is going to be a hard year for this market in California if people are expecting it to be the same as this year. It's like, this is the boom time. Next year, you're going to have to tighten that belt a little bit.
I know that we're going a little bit backwards here, but can you talk to us about when CALSSA started?
Yeah, so talking about backwards, CALSSA's been around for over 45 years.
45 years.
So CALSSA's older than I am. We started as solar thermal, because that was a big part of this industry. And
I think I remember that was the primary focus in the beginning.
Yeah, and we still do solar thermal policy work. And about 20-something years ago, we expanded into photovoltaic policy and working on rebates and codes and standards and permitting and the red tape. Because frankly, anyone at this convention can tell you, the hard part of the job is not, can I get great products from wonderful companies? It's not, do I have a hard time talking to customers? Honestly, some of the hardest part is, can you get the paperwork done? Can you get the project over the finish line with your interconnection? Can you get the permit? Can you get this product with the right stamps? That's all government. That's all government stuff.
Correct. Especially interconnecting with utilities.
Yeah, that's always super fun. It's amazing how slow it is. But in California, we've been making a huge amount of progress on particularly the permitting side. And this is something that's really important, especially on the resi, but also commercial, because in California, we got some laws passed a couple of years ago to say permits for residential systems cannot cost more than $450.
Okay.
So, and especially for systems under 15 kW. So, for those of you listening in, if you've paid over $450 for a residential solar permit in California for a system smaller than 15 kW, you've been the victim of a crime.
Something is wrong there.
That's something. Yeah. And so we've been getting laws passed to speed that up, to say online permitting. Because at the start of COVID, different towns said, oh, we can't do a permit, no one's at the office. And we had to say, hey, there's this whole thing, it's called the internet. You can email PDFs. I don't know if you've heard, it's a big deal. But there were building departments that during COVID, that you had to print out your permit, drop it off at a basket, and then 2 days later, they would pick it up when it got disinfected. And we said, why don't you just email it? And so,
or we could always make a copy of the fax and then fax it back to you.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe we could do that. And this is a big part that we had to work on, because at the end of the day, we're all in the business of doing good projects at high quality and high speed. That's not necessarily everyone's same goal. And so we've been pushing, and we got this law passed, the Solar Act, which now mandates for residential systems instant online permitting, basically. Yes. And that's something that's huge. My cousin went solar in Oakland, and when she got solar, she signs the contract. There's the 3-day cooling off period. She sends in a deposit.
Yep.
And then no one shows up at her house for a month. And she calls them a week later being like, hey, what gives? And they're like, oh, we're waiting on our permit. It's like, that doesn't inspire referrals. That doesn't inspire confidence. And now, because this law that we got passed in the new policy, when you sign a contract, you get that permit. That permit's instant online for a residential project, which means crews are showing up at your house because 5 kW system, that takes a day. It does not take that long to build a 5 kW.
So what I also understand about the advantages of applications like Solar App, these will also be able to look for any kind of flaws that are in your submittal very rapidly. So not to be in a stalemate of whether or not something is inspected correctly or if the right box is checked. Having this all going digital will give you access to information a lot more rapidly.
I mean, because a lot of times with these building departments, the delay is the fact that someone didn't check the right box, or building inspector is looking at an outdated piece of information, and it really is just this. It is a cookie cutter thing. And one thing that I think even the commercial people should be very excited about is when the building department, Phyllis in the building department looks at every 5 kW system. She also looks at every 500 kW system.
Correct.
And what we are doing now with this bill is we are taking all the residential stuff off of that person's plate.
That makes sense.
So now there's just so much more time to work on commercial projects where you can't just say, oh, hey, is the roof up to code? Is the building up to code? What's going on? Like, you have to actually dive in deep. But now they don't have 100 other small resi projects to look at, just commercial.
Absolutely, and with the advancements in mobile technology, it's easier to take a photo of something that's time-stamped and geotagged of exactly where it is.
Yeah.
So that means the inspector does have access to information. Was that installation done properly? Was that the right wire, on the spec'd out for that system?
No, and it's something that I think a lot of contractors have a tumultuous relationship sometimes with building inspectors, because you're trying to get to PTO, you're trying to get your project done, and being told, oh, you skipped a part of a paperwork or you missed a thing. It's good to just simplify that and speed that up so there's not these weird interpersonal dynamics that keep happening.
Absolutely. So I think last time I heard, Bakersfield was in Kern County. Were primarily accepting Solar App.
Yeah. So it used to be about a handful of towns were accepting Solar App, and we were working with contractors to get the Solar App in front of the building departments.
Okay.
Then we got a law passed that said every city and every town has to do it.
Okay.
So it was about 20 towns. Now it's going to be everyone. There's an exemption for communities under, I think, 50,000, which is not many communities in California.
Not too many communities of that size.
Yeah, Ben Lomond
or whatever. They're out there. There's some of those smaller agriculture towns out there.
And I think a lot of those towns will probably voluntarily do the Solar App because it's going to be that easy and it's that straightforward. But it's one of those things that there's so much efficiency gains to be made, and all of us here in private industry have a very strong incentive to do it. And government has other incentives. They have other structures. They have other things they're trying to do. And so getting this law passed that says, hey, instant online permitting, faster solar permitting is now a priority of yours. That's great. And it's going to take a little while to do something similar in the interconnection side of things. That's still a pretty long delay. But at the end of the day, there's a lot getting in the way of projects being done here in California. And we, as the California Solar and Storage Association, are working on that red tape, not just on the defense of defending them, but also on the offense of cutting costs of projects, because this shouldn't get in the way of people.
Absolutely. So how large has CALSSA grown today now? How many team members do you have working with CALSSA?
So I've been at CALSSA now for 7 years.
I know,
so it's my 7th year anniversary coming up. We had about 300 members when I started. We're over 700 member companies. Something like 85% of all solar projects are installed in California are installed by a CALSSA member.
That's fantastic.
And the other ones are supported by a manufacturer, financier, or supplier that is a CALSSA member. So we're hands are everywhere. And we have 9 people on staff as an organization.
Okay.
So you all are a lot bigger. You all listening in are probably a lot bigger. Most solar companies are larger than CALSSA. So when we talk about these rallies and things like that, and how we need you out there, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of staff time to put into it, and so when people see the invites that we send out, and they instantly RSVP, that makes our life a lot easier, so I can bug people who don't read their emails.
Well, it's also, the state of California is a tremendously large state, the 4th largest state in the United States, right? three major utilities,
Yeah.
right? PG&E, SoCal Edison, and SDG&E, and smaller municipalities out there. So you guys are doing a phenomenal job doing what you're already doing with the staff that you have. I think that the basis of installers out there who are already CALSSA members definitely are putting a lot of foundation into what you guys do every year, year after year. If I was a solar installer, how would I get started with CALSSA?
Yeah, CALSSA.org, the website there. We have a big join button. You fill out that thing, and
it's that simple.
You fill out, and if you don't finish, if you fill it halfway and you leave your car abandoned, I call you, and after a couple of hours. But yeah, no, we get you involved, and this is a big part of companies like K2 have been huge proponents of ours and supporters of ours, because at the end of the day, we're 9 people, but with our 700 members, we speak with a loud voice, and that's what enables us to fight toe-to-toe with these multi-billion-dollar corporate monopolies, these behemoths of politics
that have absolutely nothing to do with what we're doing with
solar.
and
we gotta fight hard. We gotta win. And I think for a lot of folks who are tuning in or aren't that familiar, all these fights are winnable, but they're fights, and we gotta push back if we want to win. So
I think that's one of the things that this industry has been able to show year after year is its resiliency and how everybody is pulling the wagon in the same direction.
Yeah. Even last year there was a separate solar tax proposed, and it was early COVID, we didn't know what to do. And we did a truck rally around the Capitol. We flooded the Capitol with all these calls and stuff like that. They were shocked. People in Sacramento are consistently shocked by how powerful and how activated we are as an industry. We punch way above our weight class as an industry, and that's extremely important to show these politicians that we mean business, and that's what we need to keep doing to keep winning. And so I know for a lot of contractors, they're like, wait, I just want to be on roofs and selling projects. It's like, yes, this is just as much part of your job as having insurance. This is just as much part of your job as shopping around for new suppliers. This is just as much part of your job as anything else, because the solar industry is inherently political. Like it or not, energy is inherently political. So it's important to show up.
So the name used to be California Solar Energy Association, and now is for the last 3 years, has been and storage. So can we touch on that and how you guys are helping this industry continue to thrive with storage in California?
Yeah, I remember it was 5-6 years ago when we first started doing the product expos, the contractor days around the state, and you all were sponsors of that.
Yes.
And we were telling people like, hey, solar contractors, batteries, they're going to be big. And a lot of contractors were like, why should I do that? That's a whole other thing to sell. I don't want to do it. And we, over years, have done the work to both educate contractors, get the codes and standards in line, because fire departments get a little nervous about batteries sometimes.
Of course.
Getting it to make sure the permitting and the interconnection process, because fundamentally, we believe that Californian homes and businesses, churches, synagogues, mosques, everything, schools, that they need to have control of their own power. That the more people and community groups with solar and batteries, the better off not only they are, but they're enriching their neighbors, they're strengthening the state. And so we want to show up at a loud voice in Sacramento across the board saying, look, solar and storage is chocolate and peanut butter. We've been doing this, 40-something years ago.
Yep.
Solar, there used to be no such thing as solar without storage. It just always was a solar plus storage.
When it initially started, terrestrial solar, yeah.
And that's a big advantage of it, and and they go together so well, and it's very important for the policymakers for them to realize that this happens. And it's important also for people in solar to recognize that storage is a huge part of our future, but that's not us just taking our ball and going home. The utilities have proposed fees for power that people self-consume.
Yes.
They propose anti-battery fees, which is, it's a grocery store charging you for the tomatoes you grow. But just because that doesn't make sense doesn't mean a government agency can't do it. And so it's really important that we keep engaging, that storage is a big part of the technological future, but it doesn't unlock and liberate us from all these other policy fights as well.
I totally agree. I wanted to also ask you from the frame point of if I was a solar installer and I wanted to gain advocacy in my jurisdiction and my assembly member, how do those stepping stones work? What are your best recommendations for that?
So if you're a solar contractor, you're already a CALSSA member, you want to get involved, a big thing is your assembly member wants to meet their constituents.
Yes.
They have a coffee hour once a month where they go to some local coffee shop and they're just there to hang out. Go to that.
Yes.
Meet them. They are.
And get engaged.
Yeah, here's the biggest secret about politicians in the world. Politicians are people, just like you and me, and they are people you can befriend, people you get to meet, and so showing up, developing that rapport, and coming in much like any other sale, you're not going in saying, hey, sign this contract right here. You're saying, hey, I'm a solar expert, just wanted to talk with you, what's up, let's chat, so that when you have future conversations, it's easier. So showing up at their office hours, making the call, go to the fundraiser, any county, Republican, Democrat, whatever, your county has the local elected official summer picnic.
Get connected.
Go to that.
Get started.
Yeah, just show up, be there, and it's a part of your stuff. And you might sell a project or two to the staffer who works for them. A lot of elected officials have solar.
Yep.
But
absolutely.
Yeah, but a big part is just not being afraid. Yes, they make laws that decide the fate of your industry. Show up, make friends. Yeah.
Title 22 here in California is the integrating solar onto new constructions.
Yes.
And was CALSSA involved with that?
Yes. So Title 24.
Title 24. Excuse me.
There's the Rule 21. Title 20. There's a lot going on. So CALSSA has been advocating for solar on new constructions, both residential and commercial, for years. And a big part is California has an existing legal framework that encourages increasing energy efficiency. And so for years we had to point out that from a grid perspective, having solar is the same thing as energy efficiency.
Absolutely.
And that's saying, look, you can either quintuple pane glass windows or you get solar. At a certain point, it becomes more expensive to squeeze out another kilowatt hour from your building than it is just to say, oh, let's just put on some solar. And so we did a lot of laying the intellectual framework so they understood that. And so when it came time to say, how do we make buildings more efficient, we say, well, solar's efficiency, add solar. And it's as long as it makes economic sense.
It's also tied to EV charging as well. Title 24, correct?
Yeah, so there's a lot about EV charging in this because California is moving to this EV-powered state.
Yep.
Which is a whole, that is going to triple our energy use as a state, our electricity use. And a big part that we're saying is, okay, if we're doing that, we also need to be making power locally because, if you have 10 Tesla super trucks or cyber trucks and a couple of F-150 Lightnings going into a neighborhood, that is a lot of infrastructure the utilities have to build. Or people can just build their own solar and drastically reduce the need. And so it's very important that solar and storage is being built along with this stuff. And I think it's something that anyone working in solar gets that that's the future, but it's really about helping politicians and regulators realize that that is the future, that it's not just, hey, let's build one giant solar project in the middle of the desert, one big wind farm in Wyoming and one big power line connecting. That's it. We need the Anaheim Convention Center to be making its own power as much as possible.
Absolutely, redundancy across the state.
Exactly.
Well, in closing, Carter, I truly appreciate your time and all your focus and support with us in this great state with keeping California solar strong.
Yeah.
Please tell us again, when is the rally in Sacramento?
So the rally and festival in Sacramento is October 11th. It's
October
at the Capitol.
11th.
I will see you there. I will see you there.
I will see you there.
Looking forward to seeing a lot of the K2 teams here. Thank you so much.
I always enjoy speaking with you, Carter. Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers.